The Ant and the Grasshopper. Free version of the Aesop's Fable. In a beautiful and vast meadow, full of splendid flowers, fruit trees, colourful mushrooms, and lively little birds, two insects lived, a grasshopper and an ant. They were neighbours, and every sunny morning they met at a narrow dirt trail leading to the river. One of those mornings, the grasshopper was lying under an old oak, with his head resting comfortably on a grass pillow. "Good morning," the grasshopper exclaimed when he saw the ant passing by, carrying a huge grain of wheat. "You look exhausted. Why don't you take a little break?" Without even stopping, the ant answered, "Hi, grasshopper. I'm sorry, but I can't stop and rest. There's still plenty of food to pick up in the meadow and take home." And without another word, the ant continued her arduous walk, while the grasshopper, laughing, saw her go away. A few days later, the ant passed by the same place again, this time carrying an enormous nut. The grasshopper, who was playing the guitar, interrupted his amusement for a while to make fun of the ant. "You've chosen a nut too big to be used as a hat. Why don't you look for another that suits your size?" The following week, the grasshopper was very busy counting clouds when the ant passed by carrying a tasty recently cut leaf. "Don't you ever stop?" the lazy grasshopper asked. "Winter is coming, and I must store lots of food. You should do the same, my friend," answered the ant. The grasshopper ignored the ant's advice. Far from setting himself to work, he preferred to take some more time off, singing his hits, whistling different melodies, talking with the birds, and enjoying long naps, sometimes so long that they lasted all day. It wasn't long before the autumn leaves changed the aspect of the meadow and covered the ground with beautiful reddish-brown colours. But what didn't change was the attitude of the grasshopper, who continued having fun and laughing. "Why don't you take another route? Seeing so much effort disturbs my rest," the grasshopper teased the ant one day. On a certain morning, the ant decided to waste some of her valuable time in an attempt to convince the grasshopper to work. "My friend, have you thought about storing food for the winter? What are you going to do when cold days arrive and you have no leaves, fruits, or seeds?" But the grasshopper just laughed and continued singing. Time went by, and soon the weather was cold. Thick, dark clouds covered the sun. The wind started to blow strongly, and squirrels and birds hid. The ant and the grasshopper continued with their routine, but the grasshopper didn't look so cheerful as usual. "Haven't you made up your mind to work yet?" the ant asked the grasshopper on a cold morning. "I'd do it with pleasure," answered the grasshopper, "but it would be a pity to waste these gusts of wind. Look at my kite rising." The ant preferred to move away without saying a word. A few days later, as it was to be expected, the first snowflakes started to fall. The ant continued with her tasks and passed by the grasshopper, carrying the scant green grass left on her back. For the first time, her neighbour didn't make fun of her, perhaps because he was shivering. "You're still in time to pick up some food," suggested the ant when she saw the grasshopper in such a bad state. "Maybe you're right," said the grasshopper, "but this temperature is perfect to enjoy a nap." The grasshopper curled up the best he could, and once again the ant decided not to waste time on him. Winter arrived with all its power, and the snow covered every inch of the meadow. The ant took shelter at home surrounded by the food she had stored during the last few months. Then she heard a knock at the door. "Who is it?" she asked, alarmed. The ant opened the door, and there stood the grasshopper, freezing. "Oh, it's very cold, isn't it? By the way, could you give me some food, my dear neighbour?" he asked. The ant answered, "Tell me, what were you doing while I was working from dawn to dusk, carrying seeds and other food?" "Well, I was singing and laughing at you," the grasshopper admitted, his nose almost frozen. "OK, so go away now and make fun of yourself if you can," said the ant, shutting the door. And what happened to the grasshopper? He had no choice. He had to face cold and hunger to learn the lesson.